Good morning, everyone. I love memes. And well, this one, somebody said this to me the other day. I asked them what they thought about the mandatory masks. And they said, if wearing a mask saves one life. So this one starts out the same way. If wearing a mask saves one life, it's worth it. And it's the pretty girl texting the guy on their beds. And he says, if hydroxychloroquine saves just one life, it's worth using. And she says, blocked and reported. I thought that was great. Made me laugh because people are so brainwashed, they'll do it. They'll just like repeat those like phrases, right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Flatten the curve. Healthcare workers are our heroes, right? All this stuff. It's all propaganda, right? It's all propaganda. These propagandists from the Second World War cut their teeth on this, and the people now are using those lessons well. And they're getting massive compliance. What's better than a health crisis to get massive compliance with zero people questioning it? Why is there no sunset clause on the mandatory mask order? What are the criteria to repeal the mask order? We had less than 30 cases, or we had less than 40 cases yesterday. We've consistently had less than 100 cases for 7 days. Why are we doing mandatory masks? What's the evidence that says masks work other than the fact that the virus is disappearing? Everybody says, oh, it's working, so let's keep it up. One has nothing to do with the other. Right? Oh, anyway, it's so frustrating. Here's a little bit of international news before we get into Canadian news. President Donald J. Trump, this is the whitehouse.gov putting this out. President Donald Trump has secured a historic deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates to advance peace and prosperity in the region. And Israel is sending an envoy to UAE on next week. So that's pretty big news. I think that's interesting. Denuclearized North Korea, pulling in this kind of peacemaking, very interesting juxtaposition to Obama's unending drone war, right? The bombing campaign that he launched in the Middle East for his entire administration, the expansion of troops in the Mid East, etc. Who's the war hawk and who's the peacenik, right? It's very interesting, because the news would have you believe the opposite, right? The news would have you believe that Barack Obama was the more peaceful president. And that is not true if you look at the evidence. Here is global news, and it says Canadians can be arrested by secret police in Hong Kong for criticizing Beijing, committee hears. That's interesting. I wonder, the top comment says, not long before that happens and starts happening in Canada as well. I can't help but fear that may be accurate. I don't know. There's lots of very concerning things happening in Canada right now. Here's Senator Leo Housakis, and he says, this government has borrowed and printed money at a historic pace. We need to recall Parliament and have a serious debate on the state of our economy and find out if Trudeau Morneau have a plan. Borrow, spend, print is not an economic strategy and invariably will be catastrophic. And this is Holly Doan, and she says Cabinet borrowed $500 billion in 120 days, according to Finances Canada. Borrowing in extraordinary circumstances report estimates $500 billion, $400 million from April 1st to July 31st. Says Blacklock's reporter. Man, that's a lot of money, isn't it? That's a lot of money. Okay, Michelle Rempel's getting some pushback. These are just like the quick hits before we get into the real stories. Michelle Rempel's getting some pushback for her attire. I don't think there's anything really wrong with the dress. The mask probably doesn't need to be there, but the shoes are the only thing that I'm kind of going, really? Those are the shoes you're going to wear to the House of Commons? Okay, your choice. Fine, no problems. But they don't seem all that comfortable, right? Maybe flats. I'd wear flats, but up to you, I guess. But I guess there was a bunch of pushback on the internet about this, and a bunch of people showing pictures of Freeland saying like, I think it was Freeland who criticized or something happened, and it took me to this morning to find out what happened because I'm blocked by Michelle Rempel, and all I could see was this picture, and I'm sure if I did a little bit more digging that I would find more, but the only problem with it I see is the shoes. Let me know in the comments if I missed something about this story, because maybe there's more to it than this, but whatever. Anyway, here is We Charity, getting into the main part of the stories today, or the first main story today. We Charity to lay off staff looking to sell real estate in Toronto. I wonder why. We Charity says its financial position has been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and recent events, prompting a need to shift programming and reduce staff. I wonder what recent events they're talking about. Here is this is the Lobbying Act. So there's a Lobbying Act in Canada. I think it's got no teeth, and it protects people because the whole investigation is done in private. We'll look at that in just a minute. Here's what the Lobbying Act says about registration of lobbyists. Consultant lobbyist. An individual shall file with the Commissioner in the prescribed form and manner a return setting out the information referred to in subsection 2. If the individual, for payment on behalf of any person or organization in this section, referred to as the client, undertakes to communicate with public office holders in respect of the development of any legislative proposal by the Government of Canada or by a member of the Senate or the House of Commons, I scroll down, the development or amendment of any public policy, any policy or program of the Government of Canada, the awarding of any grant, contribution, or other financial benefit by or on behalf of Her Majesty in right of Canada, or or the awarding of any contract by or on behalf of Her Majesty in Canada, or arranging a meeting between a public office holder and any other person. Timeline for filing a return. An individual shall file a return referred to in subsection 1 no later than 10 days after entering into the undertaking. The return shall set out the following information with respect to the undertaking. I'm not going to go through that. Requirement to file a monthly return. The individual shall file a return in the prescribed form and manner no later than 15 days at the end of every month, beginning with the one in which the return is filed under subsection 1. So this is just laying out how you're supposed to go about filing your compliance with this. And here, section 126 of the Criminal Code does not apply in respect to a contravention of subsection 1. So here's that. Here's disobeying a statute. Every person who, without lawful excuse, contravenes an act of Parliament by intentionally doing anything that it forbids or by intentionally omitting to do anything that requires it to be done, unless a punishment is expressly prohibited by law, guilty of indictable offense. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't apply. So I just wanted to show you that, yeah, they've covered that. That doesn't apply. Investigations. The Commission shall conduct an investigation if he or she has reason to believe, including on the basis of information received from a member of the Senate or the House of Commons, that an investigation is necessary to ensure compliance with the code of this Act as applicable. Powers of the investigation. Here's the part where it gets kind of dicey. For the purposes of conducting the investigation, the Commissioner, not conditioner, may, in the same manner and to the same extent as a superior court of record, summon and enforce the attendance of persons before the Commissioner and compel them to give oral or written evidence on oath, and compel persons to produce any documents or other writings that the Commissioner considers relevant for the investigation, and B, administer oaths and receive and accept information whether or not it would be admissible as evidence in a court of law. Investigation in private. The investigation shall be conducted in private. Oh. So I don't think we're going to hear anything about it. Confidentiality. The information is disclosed in a report under section 10.5 or in the course of a prosecution for an offense under section 131, perjury, in respect of the statement made to the Commissioner, or the Commissioner believes on reasonable grounds that the disclosure is necessary for the purpose of advising a peace officer having jurisdiction to investigate an alleged offense under this or any other act of Parliament or of the legislature of a province. So if they broke the law, then confidentiality can be broken. That was talking about confidentiality, and I should have highlighted that, so sorry about that. But it's interesting, right? So if there's laws broken, then certain aspects do apply. But here's Dan Albus, and he's an MP. I believe he's a sitting MP. Yeah, MP for Central Okanagan. And he says, the more I review the Finance Committee evidence on the WE scheme, the less it reconciles with previous claims made by this government, as well as dates and timelines. Yeah, so the WE boys are in a little bit of hot water here. Pierre Polyev, and I've been getting his name wrong, so thank you for correcting me in the comments. Pierre Polyev, not Polyevra. So I apologize. My English reading is showing up. Polyev. We Charity suddenly discloses dozens of previously secret lobbying conversations with Trudeau government. Isn't that convenient? On the day that they're testifying, that's yesterday. That was the 13th. Today is the 14th. Okay, here's Mark Patron, and he says at 7:47 seconds point they testified, they being the Wee brothers, they got involved with this doomed government program because the civil service asked for help. Now we know the Kielburgers lobbied the Liberals dozens of times. And here, I was going to cue it up, but I'll just tell you what they said. It's kind of a throwaway comment. He's like, we would never have picked up the phone when the social service called, or the civil service called, had we known what the consequences would have been. So it's kind of a throwaway line. Like you could argue that they're not giving. Well, I mean, you could make an argument, right? But they did say it. It was during the testimony, and they were under oath. So here's Joan Ofsty from the National Post, and she says, we lobbied government 43 times in months leading up to the cancellation of $543 million volunteer grant program deal. I still think it's funny that they used the lower number, because it was 912 million first, before it was 543. Here's Dan Albus again, and he says the Kielburger brothers told FINA that we had very limited engagement, but this is far from minimal. We Charity filed a total of 65 communication reports with the registry, including 38 monthly communication reports in the past 6 months. So, and here's the article. The funny thing is they registered, or they put their stuff in when they had to testify. When they realized that they were supposed to register, they registered, but that should have been done well before. So I don't know what's going to happen with regard to an investigation. I don't know if they've contravened any laws in that, and the investigation's private, so I don't know if we'll find out. But anyway, here it is. We Charity registers to lobby federal government, discloses dozens of interactions with officers. This is posted yesterday at 7:05 p.m. We Charity is registered to lobby the federal government and retroactively disclosed dozens of previous interactions between its employees and federal officials over the past several months. Dala Al-Wahidi, sorry if I've got that wrong, We Charity's executive director told MPs on the House of Commons Finance Committee the organization had submitted the paperwork to enter the registry of lobbyists on Thursday, the same day as her testimony. The disclosure comes months after We Charity began discussions with federal government on how to help young Canadians during the coronavirus pandemic. Those contacts culminated in a now cancelled agreement to administer a $900 million student grant program that is now the subject of several parliamentary investigations and has embroiled the charity and the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's minority government in controversy. We Charity filed a total of 65 communication reports with the registry, including 38 monthly communication reports in the past 6 months. The reports refer to any oral or other arranged communication with a public office holder, which can be a minister, political staffer, or bureaucrat. The report marks the date of the communication which public office holders, were involved and the subject matter of the conversation. Between March 25th and July 5th, representatives of We had 23 registered communications with Rachel Wernick, an assistant deputy minister and sister to the former Privy Council clerk, the disgraced Privy Council clerk who left because he made crazy conspiracy theories on the House floor, and then nobody had confidence that he could reasonably do the job. Period. And that's why I had to leave. So that's an odd connection that nobody likes to connect. And you know what's interesting? It's one of the most trafficked pages on my website. That day, that for whatever reason, I don't know why. Lots of people visiting that one. But Rachel Wernick being Michael Wernick's sister is a big deal, and nobody's talking about it, and nobody's talking about it on purpose. Okay, back to this. Rachel Wernick, an assistant deputy minister at Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC. Wernick is credited with recommending to cabinet that we administer the Canadian Student Service Grant. And so isn't it interesting? Because the connection I made there was Rachel Wernick could have spoken to her brother, who spoke to Gerald Butts, who spoke to Trudeau or Telford, right? There are many ways you could have conversations and not have anybody talk directly to the Prime Minister's office or the Privy Council, because of these connections between these people that are outside. And they don't have ethics screens, right? And if they do have ethics screens, I haven't seen them. An ethics screen is you say, I understand that there's a conflict of interest here. I won't talk to this person about anything to do with this. I'll talk to this person instead, and they'll have the responsibility. Or I'll refer people to this person to talk about this thing, right? That's what an ethics screen would do. Okay, just to make those connections, because nobody else wants to. Back to this. We has also registered to lobby 19 federal government ministries and departments, including the Prime Minister's Office, the Privy Council Office, the Finance Canada, and EDSC. And so there's more to that as well. That's the end of We. I think I don't know if it's going to bring down the government. Trudeau's still on vacation. He's behaving as if he's got a majority government, and we're going to see that in just a minute as well. I'm going to show you how many vacation days he's taking. Okay, here it is. I'll tell you. This is another ventilator company that no ventilators that have been approved in any jurisdiction, but he received almost $700,000 in federal funding. So that's interesting. But back to Trudeau. He's been on vacation for 13. In 2019, he took 13 weeks vacation. 91 days divided by 7, 13. 13 weeks vacation. If you divide it by 5, hold on, let's divide it by 5. That's 2 business weeks. If you divide it by 5, it's 18.5. If you divide it by 7, it is 13. So either way, 91 days is a lot of days. And this is True North exclusive. They say Prime Minister Justin Trudeau so far logged 48 personal days in 2020. That's 21% of the year so far. We're at 8 months in. And in 2019, Trudeau took 91 days off, nearly 25% of the year. True North has more. And man, like, I don't know if they're counting all the weekends as personal days. If they're counting the weekends as personal days, then that's a little bit different in my mind. Like, because on the weekends, the Prime Minister puts personal day quite a lot, and Saturday, Sunday. And he's a dad, okay? And then Trump works around the clock, and Trump's also a dad to a teenager. But Trump works around the clock if we're comparing apples to apples. I'm not criticizing or saying necessarily that Trudeau should work through the weekend, because your family should be very important, I think. But I think the juxtaposition and the crises that we've been experiencing, well, I mean, if you compare Trump to Trudeau just for work ethic and actually getting to work, I don't know that Trump spent 91 days on the golf course. I'd hear about that, I'm sure. Here's Catherine McKenna, and this is the interesting article about the Hong Kong Fooey, the guy who had an expletive-laden rant at McKenna's office and sparked this whole thing. I think that it's so interesting that in the next couple of stories, we're not allowed to hear what the people said or did. We just have to believe that they're racist enough to be abhorrent, and we have to believe that they're awful people and that they mean the worst for everyone. And I think that it's interesting. These people are saying that these politicians deserve respect and blah, blah, blah. But the point of being a politician is not that you automatically get respect, right? Like, you get the title of honorable, but you don't always get respect. You earn respect, and you earn respect by doing a good job. And if people are doing the stuff that this guy's doing, not that I condone that, but he's showing that how frustrated people are. He's very, very upset, very clearly. And he's showing how upset Canadians are, and right or wrong, and wrong, but it didn't break the law. And pretending that it did, and pretending that politicians deserve to be shielded from criticism because they're politicians, is faulty. It's stupid. It's wrong-headed. Get into politics because you've got a tough skin and you can handle it, not because you think you deserve to be heard. You earn that respect. You don't have it by volition of being elected. You earn it. You get elected. That's the beginning of the test. It's not the end, right? Like, and this just seems very tone deaf to me. Okay, so this is National Post. Quote, "It's not just about me," McKenna says. "New measures needed to protect politicians from threats." Okay, I'm not going to go through this article. Here's police make arrest after Indigenous Lives Matter signs torched in possible hate crime. Okay, I'm going to do that one after I do this one. MPP Lisa MacLeod under police protection in Ottawa following threatening emails and unexplained mischievous incident. So my issue here is they conflate it with McKenna's incident. So they use McKenna's incident to talk about a problem that happened. And, well, here it is. Napanee? Is that how you say it? Nipan? MPP? I'm probably saying that wrong. Lisa MacLeod will be under police protection in Ottawa after threatening emails and unexplained mischievous incidents targeting the minister after she appeared on a local radio program to condemn recent harassment against other local female politicians. Okay, so I would love to read the threatening emails. I would love to see the mischievous incidents. And, like, there's no examples, right? Like, what did they say? What did they do? Because I'd like to make up my own mind. Yeah, sure, nobody deserves to be threatened. Nobody deserves to have their family threatened or anything like that. Nobody deserves that. But if you're doing a job and the public employs you and the public's feedback is you're doing a crap job, that's not racism. That's not misogyny. That's not toxic masculinity. That's not anything other than public frustration at a government that's doing a terrible job. So it's really, really, really jarring to have them say, "Oh, you have to be nicer. You have to be nicer. We do a better job, and maybe people will be nicer." Back to this. MacLeod was also the victim of threatening emails and harassment last year that led to criminal charges and a conviction. There's no information to suggest the cases are connected. Police have yet to confirm whether the latest incident is under criminal investigation. So, I'm not saying these things don't happen, but my goodness, why aren't we allowed to know what they said and to make up our mind? And why is the pathway always we have to learn from this and not, well, the job of being a politician is you've got to have tough skin. You've got to be able to deal with people who disagree with you and who are vocal about it, because there are going to be a lot of them, because a lot of people disagree with how things are happening. And that's just true in every society. There are going to be 30 to 40% of people who want things done differently, and those 30 to 40% don't agree either. So there's going to be contentious discord. There's going to be people who are upset about how things are happening, and they're going to express it. And maybe that guy expressed it wrong, but he didn't break any laws, and that's the point. Okay, back to this. Police make arrest after Indigenous Lives Matter signs torched in possible hate crime. Possible hate crime! There's no... Hate crime isn't on the books in the Canadian Code of Law. Okay, and that's said in this article. Here it is. York Regional Police have arrested a man in connection with a hate crime investigation after a small Ontario community's efforts to confront racism were reduced to ash. Residents of Schaumburg, a village of 2,700 people about 70 kilometers north of Toronto, have been displaying about 200 signs reading Black Lives Matter and Indigenous Lives Matter on their lawns and business fronts since the beginning of July, part of a grassroots effort to express solidarity with global wave of protests against systemic discrimination. I wish the CBC would report it accurately. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement that has nothing to do with really bettering black lives at all. They're more interested in destroying things. So they're not... I wish that the news were accurate and at least reported the affiliation with Black Lives Matter and Marxism, and then maybe told people about how bad Marxism and communism is. And was, right? Back to this. But late last week, someone sent a message to a community Facebook group expressing outrage over the campaign and threatening to destroy some of the signs. Then, in the early morning hours of August 11th, 6 of the Indigenous Lives Matter placards went missing from the village's historic Main Street and were set alight in a nearby park. On Thursday, York Regional Police staged a dramatic noon-hour raid, closing off the village's business strip as members of the force's emergency response team arrested a male suspect as he stood outside his Main Street apartment smoking. What a takedown, right? Right out of the movies. They then carried out a search warrant on his second floor unit looking for evidence of accelerant, according to an officer on the scene. A police spokesperson confirmed that the force's hate crime unit had been overseeing their investigation. The suspect's name and details of the charge have not yet been released, but sources tell CBC News that it is the same individual whose name and photo was attached to the Facebook post. I'm feeling quite relieved, said Susan Heslop, who administers the Schaumburg Community Facebook group, and passed a screenshot of the threat on to police on the morning it was made. Heslops said an officer then called her and said he had spoken to the suspect who was just blowing off steam. Now she wonders if more should have been done. Somebody let this slide, and this guy's been walking around town thinking he got away with it. Terrible. CBC News has reviewed an image of the threatening message, which Heslop refused to approve for posting in the forum. It used racially charged language and made reference to recent land protests by Six Nations members in Caledonia near Hamilton, Ontario. The threat targeted only the Indigenous Lives Matter signs and warned that they would be burned, details that weren't made public prior to Thursday's arrest. If they think their lives matter so much, then why wouldn't... If they think their lives matter so much, then they wouldn't be breaking laws and stopping us, as in all races, from using our roads, it read in part. The suspect has been released and charged with mischief and uttering threats, according to police. There is no hate crime in the criminal code. Police departments vary in how they determine whether a hate crime is identified as a hate motivated, and the consideration only comes into play during sentencing. I think that it's very interesting, the use of the hate crime, how it's very subjective. So during sentencing, that was hateful, but this other thing's not hateful. I think somebody was saying like kill all white people and attack somebody from behind, and that wasn't deemed a hate crime. Watch this be totally deemed a hate crime. And the whole thing is crazy. The way they shut down the way they took this guy in, they're sending a message. You can let people blockade trains, you can let people throw objects at trains, you can let people light train tracks on fire while police stand back and say, that's probably a bad idea, you're endangering yourself, you're endangering the train, please don't do that. People whose job it is to protect the Canadian rail police standing back doing nothing. And this guy gets an entire SWAT team because he burned some signs? $25 of, theft under $25 and arson, and they do a whole street shutdown and take him down? Come on. This is a warning, and you should take it seriously. It's incredible. Okay. Here's another very concerning thing. Carlton Criminology Department cuts ties with police and prisons. This doesn't help people. Usually there'd be 80 students who would be going into, typically 80 third-year criminology students are given internships with Ottawa Police. But because of the politicization of these Marxist ideas, Carleton University is marching lockstep with the Black Lives Matter BS, and the students suffer. You can't demonize police unendingly and have that end up okay. have that end up with no consequences. That's not going to happen. It's not realistic to expect. It is very, very concerning. And the fact that the defund police idea is so widespread, even like police forces are trying to kowtow to these people. The thing is, they're never going to be satisfied. You might as well disappoint them now, because they're never going to stop asking until it's completely defunded, until capitalism is destroyed and everybody's in their kumbaya utopia. They're not going to stop. So why are you trying to appease them? It is stupid. It's a failing game. You cannot win. Why try? Prince Edward Island has 5 new COVID cases, all essential workers, none of them from inside Canada or the US. It's wild. It's wild. It's I mean, not unbelievable, but we have shut down transportation or the ability to travel between provinces. I can't go to Newfoundland this year. We usually go visit my brother-in-law. Can't go to Newfoundland this year because of that. And yet we're bringing migrant workers in, and that's okay, into the Atlantic bubble. I think that this is just incredibly tone deaf of our government. The proof is in the pudding of how awful the management of this has been from the bottom to the top. It's been worse than we. Prince Edward Island has 5 cases. Oh yeah, here it is. Dr. Heather Morrison says men came from outside Canada and not from the U.S. That's where that came from. I'll leave the link in the description. I'm not going to go through it. Yesterday I reported on, this is the Mural, and yesterday the mayor of Calgary weighed in. He said, giving wings to the dream will not be removed or repainted. At Pink Flamingo YYC is working with the city, Calgary Arts Dev and YYC Bump to find a new location. The hate and racism that has come out in this discussion is disgusting, and anyone participating in it should be ashamed. I think that, again, I'll say it's not appropriate to use public purse to push forward political art, even if it's enshrouded in the idea of equity or equality, because that's just as political. It's been politicized, and the Black Lives Matter Marxist communists have usurped it. And I'm very glad that this is staying in Calgary, but they're still getting a boatload of cash to do with what they want to propagate their very dangerous ideas. And again, I think the public money that is dog-eared for public art shouldn't be used to push forward any political ideology, not mine, not theirs, not anybody's. It should be used to beautify, not to divide. Like, I think it's completely inappropriate for this stuff to be used in that way, and the public money to be used in that way. Here's the last one out of New Zealand, so going around the world. This is Rocco Gelati, and he's fighting the mask mandate. I don't know how far he's gotten. I was hoping that it was going to be a quick resolution, but no, I don't think anybody wants to hear it. And I think our courts are not interested. So what can you do about that? But this is a minute. I'm already long. Basically, he's saying that there's quarantine camps in New Zealand, and people who have positive COVID-19 will be moved to these quarantine camps, and they're very comfortable, and lots of people there, and lots of capable people to deliver the things that you need. And here's something I came across from March 2020, and this was tweeted out earlier today. Yeah, so I saw this today. I didn't come across this in March. I came across it today. But Onyx is looking at having an isolation facility in Leduc, Alberta. It's got 50 self-contained rooms, grocery delivery every 3 days, laundry services, nurse on location, medical director for oversight. I wonder if it's a hotel they just leased, or maybe, a hotel went under and they were like, perfect, that's it. And then, you have to extraction plan to remove anyone suspected of exposure off locations for virus containment. Off which locations? Like your house, or like a dormitory for migrant workers, or what? Like what's the plan here? Where is this working? So I haven't been able to. I haven't contacted these numbers yet, but I'm probably going to see what the status of this is, because I'm very interested in this. So look for that. I'll update this story when I get some more information about it. But man, isn't that concerning? I think it's very concerning that we're looking at isolation facilities, and it looks like the longer this pandemic goes on, and the more it looks like it's gone away, the more the government is ramping up their draconian measures, and the less they're listening to the population about what they want. And it's really, really concerning. And I hope that we're able to stop it before before it's too late and nobody's even questioning why we're wearing masks. They just know that that's the law. It's not the law. Public orders are not law. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. It's Friday. It's Friday. Have a wonderful day.